What's up, guys? Ryan here from Mud Gunner. I am joined with my buddy Mason. He's been on the channel a couple times now. And yeah, in previous videos we talked about medical, but in today's video we are talking about shotguns. So Mason, go ahead.
Yeah, shotguns are a topic that's kind of near and dear to my heart. I have employed them in a professional capacity before. They're very underrated guns, I think. A lot of people, you either hear two different types of rumors. It's like, oh, you need a shotgun, and you just hop out on your porch and shoot 2 rounds up in the air, and then you're good to go, right? Or it's like oh, shotguns are terrible, they're useless, you don't need to use them anymore, they're old guns, they don't matter. And I found that the truth is typically in the middle of those things, right? So there's definitely still a place, I think, for shotguns. So my idea was just to kind of go through some of these shotguns we have on the table, just because some of them are neat, but also we kind of have them organized like, maybe not by age, but by like the technological advancement, sort of, so you can kind of see the direction shotguns have taken. We don't have an AA-12 fully automatic magazine-fed shotgun, unfortunately.
That's at my
Ryan's working on that, so he's going to get to
one
work.
Of these days.
Yeah, that would be the dream. But you know, if we just want to kind of jump into it, I suppose we can start with that, and then we'll end a little bit with talking about ammunition type.
Yeah.
You know, because Ryan mentioned there's so many different types of ammunition available for shotguns. It's like, do I need the dragon's breath in my house or whatever? And
not in Arizona.
Yeah.
Don't burn the desert down.
We'll go over that a little bit towards the end too. So
yeah, we'll take it off wherever you want to start.
Sweet. The first shotgun then, courtesy of a friend of mine, Kenneth over there, he brought his trench shotgun.
The way this one works right here is it's really odd design. This little button in the back, you have to push forward and then back. And then yeah, don't grip too high on it, or else this can kind of like scratch the shit out of the back of your thumb right there. But yeah.
Cool. Sorry.
No, all good, all good. That's one thing I'm like, I probably should have showed you guys to begin with.
Which there's tons of videos out there about these things. They're awesome, very cool shotguns. They're also colloquially known as the war crime stick. The reason behind that being simply that when we went to World War I and joined in the fighting in Europe, we brought shotguns with us. Up to that point, they weren't really employed very often by the other countries that were involved in it. And we were like, well, I think shotguns would be great for trenches. And they were. They were really good for trenches. They were too good for trenches. And so the Germans logged a formal complaint against us for using shotguns. And our reply was essentially like, well, maybe stop blowing up ships in the Atlantic with U-boats, and then we'll stop using shotguns. And they were like, no. So then we just kept using it. So it was great.
Crazy. I didn't even know that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The cool thing about these older shotguns, and this one is a Winchester, but there were a couple different brands of these during the war that we used, because obviously when we go to war, we farm it out to other companies to manufacture them for us and stuff like that. But this is what's called a slam fire shotgun, so it has that unique kind of functionality to it. What that means simply is that you can hold the trigger down, pump the action, and every time you bring the action back forward and load a new round into the chamber, it will shoot for you, right? So you're still manually actuating the pump, but it's shooting every time you push forward. Modern shotguns, that function's been eliminated. You can't do that with any modern shotguns that I know of.
I think the most recent one you could do is an Ithaca 37, but it's not a modern Ithaca 37. You'd have to find one. I don't know what the cutoff was. I have an early, maybe 80s Ithaca riot shotgun, and it is still slam fire. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a neat function, and I can just imagine some doughboy hopping into a trench full of krauts and being like, bam, 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 right? Blasting away. Also, of course, you'll notice there's a very large pointy stick at the end of this bayonet, or the end of the shotgun. That's a bayonet. This is a 1917 model, so that's why it's so long.
Yeah, can we stand this up?
Yeah.
It's crazy long.
Back in the day, it was still very common practice to have extremely long bayonets, because they were still thinking like cavalry charges and things like that, right, where you have to use these almost like spears to attack cavalry that are coming at you. So they're all very long. And then when we bump up to the next generation, you'll see they got shorter. We did still use these in World War II as well. The bayonets got a little shorter. Typically, they were the standard length that you had find on an M1 Garand, so a little on the shorter side. But it's got a nice heat shield and everything too on there to make sure you don't burn the heck out of your hands, because shotguns get hot very quickly.
Yeah, I just feel like a model. Mason's doing all the talking this time, guys. But yeah, this thing's.
It's really fun to shoot too until you break it.
Yeah, don't.
Yeah, that sucks. I've broken that one before. Oof.
I just want to show real fast. So what Mason was saying about the slam fire is when you, I'll clear it real fast, when you are firing, so the hammer would go forward, and then you could just pump it again, which I guess, and then when you go forward, you'll notice the hammer goes down with it. And that's because it would have fired again. So slam fire just means you hold the trigger, you keep pumping it, and it'll fire as fast as you can pump it. So just wanted to point that out before we move on to the next one. But
yeah, these things are sweet.
Yeah. I want an old one like that. It'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah, they're pretty hard to find nowadays. Kenny got lucky when he got this one.
A lot of people convert them because we still get like the long barrel 28, 30-inch barrel Model 97s, and you could have someone chop it, and you could buy a modern heat shield for it. So there's a lot of ways to convert a hunting style 97 to this.
One company just came out with a
there's the
redux on them.
So you can buy a, I don't know if it's Norinco, but it's like a modern Chinese.
I think a U.S. company just started doing it too.
Yeah, I think it was a modern
Remington,
Chinese
maybe? I don't know.
Shotgun that's like this. But even those are like $800, $900. I think when they first came out, they were like a few $100s. But
I'd rather spend the $2,000 on a real one then at that point.
Yeah. So, but very cool shotgun. And again, if you want like a modern slam fire, I think the Ithaca 37 is just the most recent one.
Right. Just an interesting side note on the ammunition for these shotguns. When they were first employed during the Great War, World War I, the shotgun cartridges were actually paper. It was all paper, and they would put wax on it in order to make it a little water resistant. But unfortunately, it didn't really work very well in the trenches and in Europe and France, obviously, where it's very rainy and wet. So unfortunately, the shells would get wet a long time, and so you'd kind of see people with a reputation for these things not being very reliable. That wasn't actually the case. It was more that the ammunition itself was less reliable. Towards the end, the U.S. government started switching to solid brass casings for the 12-gauge ammunition for the shotgun, and then obviously that worked a lot better. Just they didn't have the same capability to make the plastic casings that we do now. So World War II, we used the brass-cased 12-gauge.
Yeah, I haven't seen full paper. I've seen full plastic shells, and I've seen the full metal shells, but not paper shells.
Yep. They're kind of hard to find now, actually. So, cool. I guess the next shotgun then, kind of keeping in the same vein, this is also a military shotgun. This is a Mossberg 590A1. So make sure everything's unloaded, of course. Yep. So this is another shotgun we employ in the military. I have some experience using this particular model of shotgun from my time in the military. You'll notice it still has a bayonet lug. I mean, we're not really running around using that much anymore, but there is something to be said for how intimidating it is to have a knife on the end of your shotgun.
Oh, yeah.
I suppose. I kind of updated this one as my personal one with some Magpul furniture so I could add a light, because I think lights are kind of required for most fighting weapons that you'd use, whether that's handguns, rifles, or shotguns, in my opinion, of course. And then, of course, I added a side saddle to it. We could just hold a couple extra rounds. But it functions on the similar principles. It's a pump-action shotgun, so every time you want to shoot it, you have to rack the slide. There's a safety located up here that you can activate pretty easily with your thumb. There's not really much different from that, other than, of course, this is not slam fire. Does not work that way. It's a pretty modern-ish shotgun. These have been around for a long time in one form or another, though. The 590s, 590A1s. In the military, the ones we had actually had pistol grips and shorter barrels, though.
I've seen those. Those are pretty cool.
Yeah, we mostly employed them for like less lethal kind of stuff. But obviously, you can still switch very easily to that, and which I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. We'll get into that when we talk about ammo.
You're good.
So, I mean, they're just cool shotguns, man. I like them. I got this one just because, you know, it's kind of what I use, so a lot of people like to do that.
And Joe Biden told you to.
Yeah, and, you know, Uncle Joe said, hey, buy a shotgun, right? So who am I to deny the President of the United States?
Yeah, no, this thing's sweet. I don't have a 590A1. I keep a Mossberg 500 shotgun next to my bed.
Oh, yeah.
I actually have the ATI Scorpion Edition one, so it's kind of got like an AR-style grip with a stock, and then side saddle. I think mine just has 4 or 5 on there, and then running a light and an optic on that one because mine has a rail. But yeah, I mean, shotguns, there's AR-style shotguns nowadays. You can go all out with shotguns, so we don't have the fancy John Wick shotgun, but this one's awesome too. I guess the Benelli.
Yeah, we got something close to the John Wick one.
The light's nice too.
Yeah, they're just fun to shoot too.
Take the bayonet off, but it's cool when they have the bayonet look.
Yeah, we don't use them very much anymore, but it is just a pretty neat feature to have.
Yeah. Cool.
Sweet. Next, I guess we'll stick with the pump action theme, but we'll go to something that's definitely a lot more modern. This is not my favorite shotgun ever made. It's actually probably pretty far down on my list of shotguns. Sorry, Keltec, but yeah, this is a Keltec KSG. It's a bullpup shotgun, so you'll notice the actual action for the shotgun is located in the back, similar to any bullpup style rifle. The neat feature about this, other than that it's bullpup, is that it actually has 2 magazine tubes, 2 7-round, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 7-round magazine tubes. So you can actually carry 14 rounds with one in the chamber, so 15 rounds total if you want to in the shotgun, and then you can switch tubes. So the cool thing about that is you could have like buckshot in one tube and slugs in the other tube, and then you could just switch between the 2 tubes if you needed to make different kinds of engagements. This one very comically has a carry handle on it that has no function whatsoever on the shotgun, but it sort of looks kind of neat, and I guess if you flip the iron sights up, you can, oh wow, that's a lot cooler than I thought actually, dang. It does have a rail too, so you can add lights or you could add optics in place of the carry handle if you wanted to. They're sling mounts. I definitely recommend if you look at something like this, though, the foregrips are a great idea on a bullpup shotgun because there's not really a lot going on right here.
I've only seen a couple pictures, but buy something that's solid mounted because the Magpul RVG, those seem decent because they have 2 screws going through them. But I've seen a couple KSG hands that did not look so hot where, can I see it real fast?
Yeah, absolutely.
They were pumping it. So when they pumped it, they weren't being mindful of their trigger control, and the grip broke off and they blew their hand off, or part of their hand off. So
yeah, it's one of those things, it's like very anecdotal, but I would keep in mind that shotguns beat the crap out of whatever accessories you put on them.
And this is a polymer grip, so if you run something that's not the greatest, it can break. But also, I feel like you'd have to really be jerking it really hard, because the Magpul ones are solid, but I can't speak for any other ones. So it's cool though. And I've never seen one with a carry handle on there, but yeah. I bet that's at least pretty usable.
You know, it was dumb until I flipped up the front sight, and that was kind of neat.
Yeah, that's not bad at all.
KSG did just come out with a new model of these that is a single tube underneath, so it's way thinner. That's actually kind of cool.
And they make it on 410 too. So 410, 20 gauge, 12. And then they also have the KSG 25 that holds 25 shells. They have the SBS one that's basically this long right here.
Oh.
And it's still, I think it's like 8+1 or something like that.
It's not bad.
Yeah, these are cool. I would buy one because John Wick shot it, but.
I had one for a while, shot it a couple times, was not a super huge fan of it, but it is it's a very neat gun. I'd rather have that KS7 you're talking about. It's just very thin. Yeah. Thin package.
The pricing has come down too. So.
But it is still pump action, guys. So every time you shoot, you got to rack it back.
Yep.
Nothing crazy.
So one trigger pull, but you have a selector lever right here for your tubes. So, and yeah, they're both just fed back here. It ejects back here. So, bullpup shotgun.
Neat.
All right.
And then of course now, probably the second coolest shotgun on this table. No offense, but you know you can't beat a can't beat a good old-fashioned trench gun.
But probably more practical.
Yes, this is a Benelli M4. This is pretty commonly recognized as like top of the line, like peak military combat-ish shotgun kind of setup right here.
It's Italian.
And it's Italian, finely crafted Italian too. This one's actually the maritime version, right? So it has the like nickel-ish coating on it, so it's
like a
corrosion resistant.
NT3. So yeah, this is the Benelli M4 Marine Magnum or the H2O, and the H2Os are a little bit different now because this is an actual like coating. The modern H2Os are a titanium Cerakote, so this coating I believe is better. But I bought this years ago, and then I haven't done too much to it. I have a Trijicon RMR, I have a sling. I don't have a light on this one yet because I haven't changed the handguard. I'm actually buying another M4 to make that one a little bit more tactical with a light. But Mason actually sold me a light for this. It's a Steiner light.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you probably don't even remember.
It fits right in the tube, right?
Yeah, so it replaces your nut up here that holds your tube together, and then the light screws onto this. I didn't bring it with me, but basically the light sticks out right here, and to turn it on, you have to hit a button on the side in front of the barrel, which is kind of odd. And then the only way to turn it off is to hit it again. So I don't think it's
like it makes sense for a shorter tube, but yeah, not
in
for
front of the muzzle.
Like
you have to turn it on and off with this button, but Steiner doesn't make them anymore. So, but yeah, semi-auto,
awesome shotguns. Kind of like I mentioned before, though, you got to keep in mind that shotguns, especially 12 gauge, it's a very violent action, whether it's semi-automatic or pump. There's a lot of recoil, so you have to put good accessories on them. RMRs, perfect. They're going to hold up to it because it's a very rugged optic. But if you got like some cheaper like Chinesium kind of optic and put it on here, it would probably not last very long just because it's so violent when it cycles that it would damage it.
The only plus side is your rounds are spreading anyway, so maybe it doesn't matter.
We can talk about spread in the ammo thing too, because that's another one of my favorite myths that people have. It's like, you didn't have to aim with shotguns, you just pull the trigger. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Still a gun. But yeah, these are probably one of my favorite shotguns. I don't have one myself. I have a 1301, which is a different Italian shotgun.
Yeah,
but
they're both nice from what I've seen. I don't have a 1301, but I have this. I'd like to get a 1301 or the A300, so just different operating systems on them. But
yeah, on the military side, this and the Mossberg 590A1, they serve together side by side. The Benellis were mostly seen in the U.S. Marine Corps, though, and then in the Army we use the Mossberg 590A1s. The civilian 590s that you can buy out there, the only difference between them and a 590A1 is that the trigger group on the military A1s is metal, whereas the trigger group on a civilian Mossberg 500 is polymer.
I think if you get an A1 specifically, they're still metal civilian ones too, because yours is metal, right?
No.
Oh, no?
That one's not, because it's like a hybrid one. I looked at how much it is to get the aluminum trigger group, and because they don't make them standalone anymore, it's like $300.
Jeez.
Yeah, so it's pretty pricey to make your 500 to 590.
I think this...
You wouldn't really notice much of a difference, to be honest, but if you guys ever want to get a chuckle sort of or see just how reliable these shotguns are, you should look up the military trials for the shotguns when they were looking at getting a new one, because they beat the crap out of this shotgun and out of the Mossberg 590. Like, they absolutely destroyed these things in the test, and the Benelli just kept running and doing what it's supposed to do. So it's pretty cool. There's a lot of awesome data out there about them. So
the interesting thing though is you gotta maintain them, because I let this thing sit in my safe for like 2 years, and when I went out to fire it, it was jamming because the piston rods in here, or the 2 rods, I think they're considered piston rods still, they were all jammed up. The gun was perfectly clean, but just because it sat for 2 years, I had to retake it apart and clean it again.
so like this and the 1301s, they have a different operating system, right? A slightly different one?
The A300 is blowback, and I think the 1301 and this are the same system. It's 2 rods. I forget. It's like an inertia-driven piston, right? I think is the exact term.
All I know is I've never cleaned my 1301 once, and I've put about 800 to 900 rounds through it, and I've never had a single malfunction that wasn't caused by crappy ammunition.
When I shoot this thing regularly, it's fine. I just had one issue where I didn't shoot it for like 2 years, and it got jammed up the next range trip. But then clean it, it's all fine.
Awesome. They're very fun guns to shoot.
Yeah.
Sweet.
And then I have a couple more back here.
Yeah, break them out, man.
We'll talk about this one because this is just pump action too.
Plus, I think what you were talking about earlier when we were off camera is cool to know, like the legal knowledge of it, because I didn't know. I forgot completely about that.
This is not an SBS. This is a Mossberg Shockwave with the SPM4 brace on here from, I think it's Mesa Tactical plus SB Tactical.
Yeah.
It's an ergo grip, but I think Mesa Tactical makes this piece. But yeah, this keeps it classified as a pistol grip firearm, not a short barrel shotgun. It's not even classified as a shotgun. It's just a firearm because it's a 14-inch barrel. But this one's cool. I actually use this as a home defense gun, and I have a little scabbard for it. So I keep it chambered like this in my house, and if I ever need it, just slide this off. But yeah, very cool. I mean, it mimics something.
Yeah.
So nice and short. Recoil's not too bad. And honestly, I don't necessarily care for the Shockwaves with just their bird's head grips. I like having something to brace myself against, shoulder-wise. But yeah, very cool.
It's kind of weird. I mean, I'm
Mossberg.
sure everybody knows, like, with AR-15s, for example, because that's kind of the hot button thing. 16 inches is the minimum barrel length requirement for it to be considered a rifle. With shotguns, it's actually 18 inches, so the barrel has to be a little bit longer than that. Otherwise, you either have to do something like that, or you have to get a tax stamp for it, which is an extra $200.
There's so many weird variations now that were not okay 5 years ago, but are okay now. Like specifically those John Wick shotguns. What is it? Who makes them? The
magazine-fed one?
Yeah. What is the 4th movie? I'm trying to think.
Foster.
Genesis Arms. Genesis makes
Genesis.
the modern one. So we actually have a 10-inch barrel one of those at our store right now with the brace, but it's like that would not have been legal a couple years ago. So I don't know what's been changing so much on the shotguns or the firearms, but you can buy the Genesis Arms 10-inch 12 gauge with a brace and it's legal. You can buy this 14-inch with a brace and it's legal. But you cannot go and take your current 590 and throw a 14-inch barrel in there and change the thing. So, yeah, these are made from the ground up as firearms, not shotguns. So it gets really weird.
Totally not arbitrary laws made up by the government at all.
But this is legal. And I've posted this as like a YouTube short, and someone's like, that's not legal. I'm like, yes, it is. It's gray area, but it is legal. So very cool. But you cannot go and just throw a stock or any other type of piece on here. It's either the bird's head grip that comes from the factory or this whole unit. I can't even take this brace off and run that alone. So very weird. But I just wanted to point that out. So these are cool. And then I have one more that we can talk about.
This one's one of my personal favorites that Ryan brought today. This thing is awesome.
Now this one is a tax stamp item. So this is a Serbu Super Shorty. It's a 6.5-inch 12 gauge. It required a $5 tax stamp. But if I were to put a stock on here, it requires a $200 tax stamp. But this is my little pocket shotgun. I've done videos on this before, and it shoots awesome. Yeah, it's got some pop to it too.
Be a good breacher shotgun too.
Yes, I also have some breaching shells for it. So, and not that I see myself breaching doors in the near future, but
as an American, you have that right.
You have that right. You could buy some shells for it. So breaching shells, I think it's like magnesium powder and other stuff.
It's different types. That one's steel powder. I was reading the box earlier. Yeah.
So basically, if you're trying to breach a door, you have a guy with this shotgun. They blow the hinges out and then just kick the door down. And it keeps it small, so you could throw this in a pack. You could throw this on a holster. I made a magnet pouch for my battle belt setup, so I could just magnetize it to my belt, and I mean, it's like carrying a pistol. So
yeah, they make purpose-built attachments and stuff for them, so you can sling it down and clip it onto a belt.
Yeah, I mean, if you play any video game where you're allowed a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary, this is your tertiary. So
yeah, very cool gun. Not going to be particularly accurate, but it's going to be super fun, and that's not the point. The point of it, like Ryan said, it's a breaching shotgun, man. So you're going to be shoving it into door jams and blowing hinges off or blowing locks off doors.
Yeah, also rides pretty well at the foot of, or like by my pedal in my car. So
reminds me of Heat.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a modern Heat shotgun just down here. Sarah Connor, Terminator.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Also The Purge. So it's been in a few movies.
Nice.
But I mean, that's all the shotguns we have for you guys. I hope you enjoyed. Oh, we got to talk about ammo.
Yeah. So we mentioned kind of already like the breaching ammo. So that would be a weird place to start. Let me back it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So the primary types of ammunition that you're going to come across for 12 gauge shotguns in the U.S. at least is going to be birdshot, then buckshot, and followed by slugs. Right, the difference between those three, and a lot of the shotgun ammunition available is going to fall into one of those three categories. But then there are specialty ammunition like breaching rounds we talked about before. There are tons of different brands, hundreds of different brands just in the U.S. for each one of those different things I mentioned: the birdshot, buckshot, and slugs. Birdshot is used for birds, right? That's exactly what it's for.
Tiny little pellets.
Very
that
small
are
pellets.
meant to spread in the sky.
Yep. And then chokes in the shotguns affect how wide the barrel of the shotgun is, so the spread for the birdshot and stuff increases. Buckshot is going to be used for bucks, like deer and stuff like that, right? At least that's kind of what it was intended for initially. Buckshot is also, though, excellent for anti-personnel. You just have to understand that it limits your range a little bit, and each brand of buckshot is going to have different patterns and different ranges.
Some of the most common ones going to be double aught buck, 9 pellet, and I mean it's a pretty universal shot. Like Mason said, you could use it for hunting buck. I mean, it's got the power for it depending on the distance, but also for a home defense shotgun. I mean, I think it's what everyone tends to lean towards is some type of buckshot.
It's just the Winchester stuff. Yeah, this is actually the 12 gauge ammunition that we use in the Army, or used in the Army at least at one point. This is what we were issued, boxes of this.
Yeah, and there's lots of cool like videos showing like the spread. Like Grantham's done videos showing the spread at different ranges.
Independence Training actually has a really good video about shotgun spread. We just no one watches our YouTube very much, but it's old.
Advertise it.
We literally like took all these different rounds out there and tested them all through various barrel lengths of shotgun and stuff like that, and showed the groups as well as their distances and stuff. So.
And if you guys are looking to get training with shotguns here in Arizona, Independence Training does classes once a year. Mason helps them out with a bunch of their classes. So
it's one of my favorite classes that we do, but it's not like a high enrollment class just because, kind of like I mentioned at the beginning, not a lot of people know how versatile shotguns are, and they don't see them as like modern effective weapons as much anymore, despite the fact that they still are given the right circumstances. But
it's one of the most powerful close range weapons too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then slugs, I guess, to get back on track. Slugs, there's like rifled slugs. Those are going to be, I guess, what you would use more for distance. Hunting, if you're hunting deer or the types of animals that you need to get out to larger or higher distances for. I am not a ballistics expert, but you can absolutely take a 12 gauge shotgun with a rifled barrel and you can still get reliable hits with slugs out to like 150, maybe potentially 200 meters. So that's still a pretty long distance for a shotgun, assuming that you have good quality ammo and a decent rifled barrel and an optic and stuff on there. But it does have that capability for you to reach out that far. I just feel like a lot of people think, oh, shotgun, maybe like 50 yards.
Yeah, so they're pretty accurate.
No, you can get out there pretty good with it.
Depending, like, because most shotguns are smoothbore barrels, you have to specifically buy a rifled slug barrel, but they made rifled slugs for smoothbore barrels. So I think that's pretty cool. So if you have like a 20-inch barrel, you buy some rifled slugs. As long as it's a smoothbore barrel, you don't run rifled slugs in a rifled barrel. But rifled slugs will stabilize a lot better out of any smoothbore shotgun. You also got to check your chokes because like my Benelli M4, the choke it came with was not good for slugs, so I bought an improved modified choke. I think the tightest choke you can do is like improved modified, or there's just cylinder bore that are okay for slugs, but just check the rating of your shotgun because if it has removable chokes, they are not all rated for slugs. Because basically what they'll do is they'll tighten it down and it'll be really harsh on the muzzle of your gun or the choke for your gun. So.
Yeah.
But,
and then I guess specialty rounds would be the last one. So this is like a super broad category. There's tons of different ammunition that would be considered that. Breaching rounds would be one, like Ryan mentioned.
Less lethal rounds.
Less lethal ammunition, which is a big one. And it's kind of it's like one of the biggest selling points of shotguns, especially from like a security law enforcement standpoint. There's not really any other weapon system in the world that you can go from lethal to less lethal just by racking a pump or pulling the handle back and putting a different round in the chamber. Not a lot of other weapon systems you can do that with. But with any of these shotguns that we just went over, a little more complex in the KSG, but you can still do it. You can have like a lethal round in the chamber, so you can use it to engage targets to completely neutralize a threat, I guess is a good way to put that. But in law enforcement or in security, you may not always be able to use that. So you can very easily switch from using lethal rounds to using less lethal rounds, which are like beanbag rounds are a big popular one that you'll hear a lot of people use, but
those are still nasty. You watched Jackass
they don't
20 years ago when they shot Johnny Knoxville.
They actually are not as intimidating as people think. If you ever shoot a beanbag round from a 12 gauge shotgun, there's almost no recoil because there's not a lot of powder behind it. Don't get me wrong, it'll still hurt and take the wind out of you. But I have a lot more experience with like rubber projectiles, like rubber torpedoes was a big one. That's basically like a rubber slug. Those are really fun to use. And then also rubber buckshot is a big one. Use that a lot for riot control because you can shoot it at the feet of a crowd of people and then it will bounce up off the concrete or asphalt and into the crowd, and they sting quite a bit. They won't kill anybody, but they sting quite a bit.
Keyword is
awesome
less
capability.
lethal.
Yes, not non-lethal. That's not really a thing. Even tasers are less lethal because there's always that 1 in a million chance that someone has a heart condition and it kills them. So.
And speaking of tasers, we actually had a pretty cool shotgun come through our store recently. We had, I think it was an X26 Mossberger Remington. It was yellow furniture to indicate the taser, but it also said taser on the receiver for shooting some type of taser shotgun round.
Yeah,
They're
so those
specialized
actually
rounds.
won't accept any real live 12 gauge rounds too because they're purpose built to shoot the Taser International
I think
cartridges.
the barrel looks like it would take it, but it's also some type of rifling or some type of interior for
Yeah,
the
that's a big
taser
thing
round.
for law enforcement. I know like Phoenix PD, or at least in Arizona, they have specially marked shotguns, so like all the furniture will be yellow or orange on it, and that's just so it annotates, hey, these aren't to be used with lethal, these are only to be used with less lethal ammunition and stuff like that. It's a lot less threatening, I guess, to people too if some civilian sees a guy with a bright yellow or bright orange shotgun than with a blacked out tactical looking shotgun.
Yeah, you'll see color-coded rounds and color-coded shotguns, but I mean, this is buckshot, I mean, there's red buckshot, so like, don't just assume that the one color means everything.
Yeah, color doesn't usually annotate it too much. You'll see clear though.
Yeah,
quite a bit.
I like the see-through shows that you can physically see what's in there.
Yeah, the less lethal rounds that I employed were clear, so you could see if it was a slug or if it was buckshot.
And then there's a lot of other specialty rounds that are not common, but you can buy them. There's like the flechette rounds. There's Dragon's Breath, which again, don't burn down the desert here in Arizona.
Yeah, it's literally sort of like a mini flamethrower that comes out of your shotgun.
It's shooting
very
magnesium.
cool looking. I don't actually really even know about the lethality of them though. Like obviously the fire's gonna burn, but I don't necessarily know that they shoot an actual like solid projo out.
Also in John Wick 4, he's lighting people on fire.
Yeah, he does the Dragon Breath thing.
But
so
yeah, as far as I know, it's like
that.
shooting magnesium powder, which burns hot, but once it's burned out, it's done. But here in Arizona, I've seen videos someone used a benellium floor to light the Tucson desert on fire with Dragon's Breath, which is awesome. Or not awesome. Terrible.
Please don't come after us if you're a firefighter, all right? Wildland firefighters. I'm sorry.
I don't do that. But and then there's flechette rounds, which some of those specialty rounds you have to be careful with the legality of using them for home defense. They're lethal, but I would just stick with buckshot. And then there's discs. There's
tons.
Yeah,
tons. And then I guess lastly, really is the home defense thing. For example, people like to employ shotguns as home defense guns, but again, the myth that we hear a lot of people say, at least doing training, is like, oh well, you either don't have to aim with a shotgun, or you can't use it. There's so much recoil for the shotgun, and my wife can't use it because it'd blow her shoulder off or whatever. With proper training and stuff, you can mitigate any of those things. They also make reduced recoil slugs and reduced recoil buckshot that you can use that have less of a kick, lower velocity though.
It'll shoot similarly to birdshot.
Yeah, but you do still have to aim with shotguns, guys. All right, watch a patterning video, watch the Independence Training one, of course, or watch Garantham's video, any of the patterning videos, and you'll see at what distance you get what size pattern, because that's very important. Just because you put 9 pellets of double-aught buck in there doesn't mean that I don't have to aim at the dude that I'm shooting at, right? Because the pattern could spread or it could not spread. It just depends on the distance the target's at. It also depends on what kind of clothing the target's wearing, how competent you are as a shooter, especially if you're employing a shotgun. So it's really important to know if you're going to use a shotgun for home defense, you need to take your ammunition out to the range, and you need to see what the pattern is at for that ammunition and at what range it's capable of hitting targets. Once you get out past like 25 meters, for example, or 25 yards, your pattern could be huge, right? And then the liability for that, of course, is in a self-defense situation. If I shoot my 12-gauge shotgun with double-aught buck at a guy 25 yards away and 8 of the 9 pellets hit the guy, but the 9th pellet goes into my neighbor's house, well, there's a criminal liability that you have to account for there, right? Best case scenario, you just damage some property and you pay your neighbor for his damaged car. Worst case scenario, that round could go and potentially hurt or kill somebody, and then you could be held criminally liable for that. So
every round or every buckshot piece has a lawyer attached to it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good way to look at it. Yeah, absolutely. It's unfortunate, but yes, that is a good way to look at it. So just things you got to consider if you're going to use shotguns or home defense. They are really good weapons for that, though. I would also kind of caution you, though, like I don't really know the legality of using less lethal shotgun rounds on people as a civilian. There can be some liability issues in that too, because if you come at a person with a shotgun, how are they going to know that there's less lethal rounds in it? Well, they might not, and that could up the use of force for that person. So
I know, like when I took the Arizona concealed carry course, they say a warning shot is illegal to do. So you can't just fire around to scare a person. And I could see a less lethal shot being similar to that.
Yeah, every state's going to have different rules on that, so definitely look into that. But yeah, warning shots in Arizona are not authorized. You can't just pull your gun out and shoot near somebody.
Research is key, because like I work in a gun store. I've heard so many, to me, kind of dumb stories over the years where it's like, oh, I just keep birdshot in there because I don't want to kill someone. Well,
yeah, dude, that's not that, but not hold up in court.
Yeah, research the rounds. You don't want to do that. Also, you'll always hear this. Well, you need a shotgun, so when they break into your house, they hear this. They're not going to hear anything because my shotgun's already chambered. Because, yeah.
Even if it's not, you guys have to remember that criminals are not criminals because all of them are dumb. Some of them are pretty intelligent people, and the fact that they've broken into your house already shows that they are willing to risk a certain amount of life, limb, or eyesight in order to get at your stuff. So just hearing a shotgun go off isn't going to necessarily scare somebody away, right? Not all criminals are going to run because they heard a shotgun. Some of the people
now they know you have it.
Yeah, and then they know you have a shotgun. Some people break into your house knowing that you have weapons, but they're willing to take that risk in exchange for getting the things that they want. So don't use a gun for that purpose, man. You really shouldn't use a gun just to scare people. Because one, legally that doesn't hold up. You can't just carry a gun and be like, oh, I thought it'd scare somebody. That's not a legal defense. You cannot draw and employ a weapon in self-defense if you're not willing or in a situation that would require you to use lethal force on that person, right? So if you go to court and you're like, oh, I just pulled my gun out to scare him, I would never use it. Well, then there's a lot of criminal charges that can come with that, like brandishing and other things like that.
There's a lot that goes into it. I won't harp on it too much because obviously I know everyone has their own opinions. This is just our opinion, but
they're wrong if they're not ours. But
yeah, but yeah, my take on it is if you're going to use a gun for self-defense, I keep it chambered, shotgun safety on. You do got to be careful with drop safe on shotguns. Specifically, I've heard that over the years. So if you knock a loaded shotgun over, they're not as safe as dropping a loaded handgun or a loaded rifle. So just know that. I don't have to worry about kids running around kicking shotguns over my house. But yeah, anything else you want to talk about on them?
No, that's really all I got, man.
Cool. Well, thank you for talking shotguns.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Stay tuned for our next video. We have a couple more videos coming out with Mason. So
yeah, let us know if you have any questions, you guys, in the comments. I'm happy to answer them for Ryan.
Yep. And yeah, we'll leave it at that.